Good morning and welcome. My name is Jim Hetherton, and I'm a world-class procrastinator. I think that's one of the reasons Bob asked me to do this. A world-class, in fact, if it was an Olympic sport, I think I could bring home the gold medal. But it wouldn't be in the next Olympics. It'd have to be the one after that, of course. All right, old joke. But procrastination, it affects 94% of people. In fact, only 6% of people say that they are non-procrastinators. I actually think that 6% are in denial with it. If you haven't done so already, please, if you could, let's change that chat setting because it's going to be very interactive today. I want all of your brain power and participation. I'm not going to tell you to turn off your phones or turn off your email. You're already big adults to do that and get the best out of the session. So just to get our brains warmed up here, I've got a little quiz for us, and the person who can correctly identify this individual get a wonderful prize. No expense has been spared by the management on this. I can promise you no expense. All right. So in the chat box, fingers to the ready. 3, 2, 1. Who was this person? Any takers? Who was this person? Don't say the Wright brothers. Oh, we've got a few Wright brothers coming through. Okay, let me give you a couple of others. Who was this person? In the chat box. Oh, I think we've got David Palmer. Correct answer. Who did this? Who did this? A sales technique that's still utilized today. And of course, one of his great aphorisms, time is money. Now you've come across all of those. Well, the answer, John, thank you, James. Okay. So the answer to all of the above and a heck of a lot more is a chap called Benjamin Franklin. Now, for those of you who don't know a lot about him, he was an entrepreneur, he was a businessman, he was a printer, he was a scientist of note. He was an ambassador to Paris and to London during his life. He was the first American to fly, and that he went up in one of the Montgolfier balloons in the 1700s. So a little bit of a license with flying. Benjamin Franklin, he was born poor. He was the 15th of 17 children. His parents were pretty productive. And anyway, when he died, he was one of the wealthiest men in the world. And during his life, I'm going to share with you a couple of statements, words of wisdom from Benjamin Franklin. I don't know if you've read his autobiography or his other great book, Paul Richard's Almanac, but he's got some great aphorisms or pithy little sayings that are really full of take-home value. And his secret to procrastination, his secret to success in life is the one that I'll share with you in a little while in the webinar. But with regards to this topic, he said this. Do you love life? And as we think about procrastination, putting things off for no good reason, an emotional response rather than a logical and a considered response, putting things off is a waste of life. And life is not rehearsal. We get one shot at this thing we call life. Now, some people need the big wake-up call, and this pandemic has been a big wake-up call for many people to consider this thing called life. And just so that I don't distract myself here, I'm going to put myself on out of the video for a little while, because I want to share with you some insights here from this fabulous little book. Again, some of you may be familiar with it. And this palliative care nurse found that there were some common themes around people who were transitioning from this life into the next life. And there were 5, as she refers to it in a book title there, regrets. And let me briefly share these with you. Courage to truly live according to my values and not as other people. And again, there's another webinar possibly around Benjamin Franklin's approach to identifying and living true to one's own values and then having the courage to do that. Another regret, that life-work balance here, in terms of, I've never heard about anybody saying on their deathbed, I wish I'd have spent more time at the office. You know, people don't do that. And they come out of that with regret. This is a big one for many people. The aspect of unexpressed emotion doesn't die. It gets buried alive and it'll come back in uglier ways. So we need to find healthy ways of being able to deal with and process a negative feeling or negative emotion in our lives, because if we don't deal with it, it doesn't go away. It just festers and it can come back, as I say, in uglier ways. I wished I had stayed, you know, one of the big excuses that people come up with here, I wished I had stayed in touch with friends. I wished I had kept in shape. I wished I had done that. I wished I had done that. You know, is this aspect of I didn't have time. Well, that's a big lie. We have all the time there is. It's about prioritization, and it's about thinking things through. And this aspect of truly wished I had given myself that permission to be happy. It's kind of like self-care. And I love what my great friend and mentor, Paul McGee, says about that. Self-care is not selfish, it's essential. So we truly need to look at this because it's our lives at stake here. It's our well-being, it's our relationship, it is our happiness. And sometimes it's about wrong choices, but more often than not, it's about not prioritizing these things that truly matter most. And I think that there are some common threads here that we can, I think fear is a big one, a fear of failure. When we think about, we get stuck in the paralysis of analysis and perfectionism kicks in, and I've got to make sure that it's absolutely right, and that actually can sabotage our success rather than empower us to be able to get things done. And what is good enough to be able to get it out and get it out the door, rather than trying to wait until it's perfect. And this fear of rejection here, and so making mistakes. Our brains are not designed to help us deal with risk. Our brain is essentially designed to help us to deal with the comfort zone and to keep ourselves protected. And so we fall into this aspect of putting things off, procrastinating again. So having a look at some of that, and today I want you to be wise. Some of you have been on the session before. Wisdom is knowledge correctly applied. It's not what we know, it's what we do with what we know that makes the real difference. So if you hopefully pick up a couple of ideas and hopefully some more and share them with other people, they can make a difference, really make a difference. Again, it's a lot of common sense, not necessarily common practice. I'm going to come back to that aspect of developing some of these things into habits that can truly help us, and rather than self-sabotage our success here. So hopefully you've got something to capture your thoughts on, digital or analog, those ahas as I refer to them, and think through in terms of, so that's a great idea. How does it apply to me right now and my situation, so that you can get real take-home value from this session and all of the other sessions that we're doing on Thoughts on Thursday. So thank you again for spending your time, energy, and attention with us. As you know, we've got some bonuses. If you respond to the survey at the end that Bob and the team will send out, we've got some extra goodies for you, along with some special bonuses, which is one, if you want to go on a bit of a deeper dive onto some of the topics that I can just touch on here today, more than willing to do that in a 30-minute chat. So let's get into it. Let's make it real and apply to you. Think about, and if you can, write them down. Right now, what are 2 or 3 things that you're currently procrastinating, you're currently putting off for whatever reason? Let me give you a couple of seconds to think about that. Hopefully write them down. What are they for you? Okay, you've got a couple of things there. If you're brave enough, I'm going to ask you to share in the chat in a minute. The list can go on and on. And this is just a summary of some of the stuff that we pulled together. I mean, that top of the list, dentist. I remember asking this question many years ago in a program, about 100 people or so. And I said to them, so what are some of the things you're putting off? One lady wrote down, going to the dentist. And I said, so how long have you been putting off going to the dentist? And she said, 10 years. I said, really? 10 years? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, you know, sometimes we put things off in the hope that they will go away. And sometimes they do, yeah. I said to her, if you keep putting off going to the dentist, they will go away. Not a good thing to do. So going off to the dentist, in fact, during one of the breaks offline, I said to her, so what is it about going to the dentist? What happened? And she said, well, when I was a very small child, I had a trauma with a dentist and it's affected my confidence. And so she's got a real phobia around going to the dentist. So don't assume we know the reasons why. Often in management and leadership, particularly, why somebody else. And I ask you to think about that role if you're a manager or a leader or a parent, etc. So understand why and understanding why. So whether it's big stuff, filing, we've got to do the filing, etc. Boring to, there's all sorts of stuff that we that we do for a variety of reasons. So in the chat box, just share with Bob and I and the team. What's one thing that you are currently putting off? Okay, starting, getting fit. Okay, finishing particular job, getting started, buying the kayak, proofreading a book. Okay, that's interesting. 98% of authors, including moi, and while I do a blatant plug here, buy my latest book. It's very cheap. It's only a couple of quid. Silver Linings, great stories about inspirational stories and lockdowns. But 98% of authors, you know, they publish, they get their manuscript to the publisher on the day of the deadline. So what are the things that we got? A presentation, handing in my notice. Okay, yeah, starting college, lots of getting the paperwork done. All right, lots of getting back into reading. Thank you. So there's one thing, keep that one thing in mind. I'm going to come back to that because I want you to really get some take-home value and deal with that one thing. All right, so let's get into this. Again, in the chat box, fingers to the ready, and we'll go 3, 2, 1. And there is a psychological reason, and Bob will maybe share with you that a little bit later on, but there is real psychological impact in dealing with that one. So think about what's the cost of putting things off for you and for your business. Let me give you 10 seconds in the chat box. Saving money, progress, stress. Okay, so what's the cost? More tax. Okay, I'm not sure what that exactly means. More tax. Okay, more last minute work, more stress, against the law if we don't do it. Oh, okay, well, okay, longer working hours, time. Is that, we've got to put more time in. So cost, being more productive. Thank you, Keith, Joel, Tracy, not being productive. Okay, so there's some real downside here, just delays. Josh, thank you. I suppose that's lack of personal development, is it? Delays, etc. So there's a real impact here, and I've just done a summary of some of the things that I thought about. Stuff doesn't get done, or at least the right stuff doesn't get done. Yeah, and so you have performance issues for ourselves, for others, etc. And we have a negative perception about ourselves and our reputation. Our reputation is vital here. reputation at all sorts of levels, for ourselves, for our team, for our company. Your reputation precedes you, good or bad. Your reputation precedes you. And when you get this sort of reputation for not delivering on time, to deadline, to quality, to cost, etc., whatever the parameters of success might be there, then it has an impact. And then if it's a team environment, you know, somebody else has got to pick up the slack, as it were. So again, this can have bigger ramifications. So think about the flip side of this. So what might you gain? What's the upside rather than the downside of putting it off? In the chat box, 3, 2, 1, go. The saving of time. Excellent. Yes, fantastic. You get that new book out in the marketplace. Live long. I love that. Thank you. Who said that? Joanne, thank you. Yeah. Less stress. Promotion. Oh, promotion of yourself, promotion of a product, promotion of all sorts of things. Just feel good about ourselves. It's not hanging over us. I love that. Yes. Feeling like you have time, more confidence, doing the right things, less stress, fantastic reputation. Ironic procrastination through the fear of failure guarantees failure. Oh, I love that. Thank you, David, for buying that. We just feel better about ourselves. Bigger income, satisfaction, confidence, Adrian. Wonderful, excellent. Achievement in doing all that. So it's flipping that mindset. All right, so personal satisfaction. Again, it's the opposite of the other list. We just feel better about ourselves. Our brain releases all sorts of happy chemicals. That serotonin kicks in, the endorphins start to kick in, and we just feel we're getting the right stuff done, and we have less issues to deal with. We have autonomous individuals who are self-motivated around in a team, and we can rely on them, and just improves everything. So that's personal satisfaction. That's really great. Thank you, team, for that. We'll come back to that one thing a little bit later on. Let me just, if I can, just put a bit of a definition around two things, because I think there is a big difference between delay, conscious delay, which is this. And it's not the ready, fire, aim approach, which some people get into. It's the ready, aim, think about this decision or this task. Got to get a bit more data before we can actually make a real, correct, chosen, informed decision. And I think that there are times to be able to do that. So it's a conscious thought, as opposed to procrastination is more of an emotional reaction to a task. All right. So I want to frame it in that way, that you've got the conscious and the unconscious, that primitive sort of part of our brain actually kicks in to protect us rather than leaving the comfort zone and getting out there and dealing with risk. So the reality is this, and if you read that fact as I frame it there, because your list of all of the things, the 2 or 3 things and the one thing, it's a priority, obviously, but regardless of its priority, we're still procrastinating, like team. So let's deal with some habits. And I've got a couple of, just before I get into my habits here, remember next week's session, Bob's going to share his fantastic ideas on closing more business more profitably. So tell other people, bring other people to us as well, if you possibly can, because that'll be a great session. We're really excited to be able to share with you. Let me just blank that off for a second. We've got Tom Ziglar. I don't know whether you know Tom Ziglar, proud son of Zig Ziglar, who in 1977 changed my life with this book. No, whether you can see that there. This book, See You at the Top. He changed my life in 1977. We got Tom and some other headline international speakers that will be joining Thoughts on Thursday, which is really great. He said this, Tom Ziglar. So developing good habits. And I've got 7 I want to share with you. Not the same as my mentor of old, Stephen Covey's 7 habits, but 7 things. And I'd like you to evaluate, are these habits for you? All right, as we go forward. If it's safe to do so, I'd like you to literally fold your arms. Yeah, fold your arms. Yeah, Look down at your left arm. Either your right hand is on top of or underneath your left arm. Yeah? Now fold them the other way. How does that feel? Yeah. Ooh. Some of you can't even do it. Yeah. Now, when you were a little child, did your mum or dad tell you you've got to put your arms together in a particular way? No, you turn it over to habit. You don't even think about it anymore. There's all sorts of things we turn over to the subconscious part of our brain. And as we look at habits, okay, so whether it's learning to play a musical instrument or driving a car. I mean, for example, you remember first initial time driving the car, you put your hands at 10 to 2, mirror, signal, maneuver, very consciously thinking about how to drive the car. And then you learned how to drive the car. If we were to take you out today and get you to retest and do your driving test again, how many of you would successfully pass your driving test? I wouldn't. No, falling into bad habits again. So it's easy to do. So the concept of habits, a couple of things, and we could do another webinar in terms of the power of habits and how to really develop these, but very briefly, in the chat box, 3, 2, 1, finish that sentence for me. Practice makes. What does practice make, team? Practice makes? Yeah, perfect, perfect, perfect. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, yeah. No, somebody got it right. Oh, okay, somebody said permanent. You see, the statement often is practice makes perfect. Well, tell me, what if you're practicing wrong? The statement should read, practice makes permanent. It becomes a habit. All right, so we got to practice right. Okay, so team, practice makes permanent. All right, so remember that and share that with other people as well. Now, if we're going to really do this, there are a couple of things about habits that we need to remind ourselves. First and foremost, we've got to unlearn before we can learn. We've got to unpack some stuff, and that's going to feel awkward. It's going to it's challenges to get out of the comfort zone and out of this pandemic. Bob, all of the other headline speakers who used to do conferences face-to-face in front of a live audience and get real feedback in the moment, etc., which was fantastic. Our lives have changed as well. And so we've had to relearn some new skills, some new knowledge. And so it's that steep learning curve of how to zoom your life and deal with these factors here. So think about the habit cycle as well, because depending upon which research that you read, you're looking at 21 to 66 days in terms of embedding a habit here. I always remember a phone call many years ago from a lady who said, that habit cycle, Jim, what happens if I go 19? Because I used to bang on about the power of 21 consecutive days. And she said, what if I go 19 consecutive times and then mess up? And I said, well, that's the exciting part. You go right back to day one. So think about, it's got to be a minimum of 21 times. All right. So think about these 7 habits in terms of, are they really habits for you that you do every day? Okay. So first one is this, Benjamin Franklin's Secret to Success. I promised to you, and maybe some of you in the chat box, if you've got any, in fact, let's do that one. Have you got any favorite sayings of Benjamin Franklin? I'd be interested in you. 3, 2, 1, share with us in the chat box, because I've got another one that I just thought of, which I think is really, really great. That maybe you haven't read his autobiography, or make your bed every day. Did he really say that? I think he would have. Okay. Who pinched my sandwich? Okay, time is money. Yeah, money, time is more important than money. I know money is up there with oxygen, but but think about that. Okay, so one of the other sayings, Benjamin Franklin, early to bed, early to rise, makes a person healthy, wealthy, and wise. Okay, so his secret to success, though, particularly with regards to procrastination, was this. Or another way of saying that in today's lingo would be, do it now. Get in the habit of now mentality. Don't put it down, put it away. That's my wife's mantra. Okay, rather than put the dishes in the sink, oh, I'll do it later. No, put them in the sink and do it now. Get it out of the way. There's real energy and action. There's real power and energy from that release of just doing it now. And if you can't do it now, then make sure it's on a list somewhere so that you can come back to it later. But get in the habit of just doing it now rather than this procrastination. So thinking things through in that regard. Planning is a big part. Let me share with you my 5-stage checklist of dealing with procrastination. Proper prior planning. Yeah, proper prior planning prevents procrastination. So thinking things through in some more detail here can really be an empowering technique to help us. Now, there's another webinar in terms of what do we mean by proper prior planning, but you'll get now I know that you all plan, okay? How do I know you all plan? Well, you're here on the webinar. There's another 50 odd people who really need this. So we'll send the link. But the thing is, as my mentor, old Stephen Covey would have put it, put first things first. So what are your first things? You see, the main thing is to keep the main thing, the main thing. So what are those first things? Professionally, personally, family, business, whatever. And have you really prioritized and you decided what you're not going to do as much as the stuff that you are going to do? And we'll come back. So whether it's an analog, whether it's digital, get in the habit of weekly and daily planning. Now, I could bang on, there's another webinar about that whole aspect of the key differentiator between the highly successful individuals is this aspect of really articulating in some sort of system your plans and your actions. That to-do lists are great, typically. Build one on Monday, still good on Friday. Except it's what on Friday, bigger and uglier. So sometimes on your to-do list, you have what I call the wince person. Every time you read this person's name, you wince. Ooh, do I have to talk to so-and-so? And so what do? Is we put it off. We procrastinate. For how long? As long as possible. Well, allied to that first habit is just do the hard job first. Or as Brian Tracy would say, eat the frog. Yeah, do the hard job first. As soon as you get off the webinar, I challenge you folks, what's that one thing that you've identified? Do the hard job first. Get it out of the way. Because all the time you're procrastinating, psychologically, that thing has a piece of you, all right? Alan Lakin's book, again, one seminal book in terms of how to get control of your time in your life. His key question that we constantly need to ask in any role in life, before I engage in email, before I pick up the phone, before I go on Zoom, what's the best use of my time? And just stop, conscience driven, what's my key priorities, and then being able to deal with that. Covey's again, beginning with the end in mind, having a clear vision of your end result before you begin. Every project, every meeting, every presentation, beginning with the end in mind, having a clear visualization of your end result before you begin. For example, in the chat box, again, I'm going to count down in a second, but if I were to give you this scenario, 1,000-piece jigsaw, and I say to you, you've got 4 hours, you will get a reward of £10,000. 4 hours, 1,000-piece jigsaw. Tell me yes or no, how many in the chat box would go for it? 3, 2, 1. Tell us, team. Yes. Oh, fantastic. Everybody, yes, 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 yes. Everybody wants the 10 grand. Okay. So a little bit of a, something I didn't tell you. I'm not going to give you the lid box. The box, the top of the box, the picture of the end result. How successful would you be in accomplishing the 1,000-piece jigsaw now without the box lid? You see, the box lid gives you the end in mind. It gives you that clear picture. You might get the edge, okay, a lot tougher. So it's that vision, that end in mind, and clarity. Clarity is a key component. We'll come back to that. Another key part of this is our motivation. Now, human motivation, human behavior is complex at the best of times, but if you use a bit of imagination, you've seen that word motivation. I think it's made up of two words: motive and action. Motive drives action. What is your reason for action? Or in our case, inaction, in terms of productivity. There is a why, okay, team. And so as we look at going from the external to the internal, what the behavioral scientists would refer to the intrinsic and the extrinsic motivation, and looking at it at a management and leadership level, it's the proverbial carrot and stick approach. Well, if you're in management and leadership, remember, the carrot will always win over the stick. Ask any horse, all right? So as we think about that mindset shift from the mentality of I have to rather than I get to or I want to, changing that mindset shift. And I'm sure that you've done this for yourself and for others. And what I'd like you to do, 3, 2, 1 again, in the chat box, share with us some of the techniques. How have you done it for yourself, or maybe influenced others? How have you changed them from a compliant, I have to a more motivated, autonomous, I'm committed to, I want to, I get to do this mindset? 3, 2, 1 in the chat box. Have you got any ideas? How can we change that? Okay, engagement, lovely. Yeah. Any other ideas, team, of how you change that mindset? Good goals, empathy, find the why. Okay, being genuine, targets, fun, adding value. Yeah, in fact, in that language, I get to, yeah? So that linguistic change is very important. It's a linguistic trip. I get to do this. Often for myself is a major shift. See what's in it for them, some reward for the task. We'll come back to those. Yeah, fantastic, team. You've got some brilliant ideas. Again, at a team and a level of management, if you're in there, I think somebody already said it, but it's summarized in this statement. Write this down, underscore it. Involvement breeds commitment. Where there's little to no involvement, there'll be little to no commitment. And so we feel autonomous. I get to do this. It's that intrinsic, I'm living to my own set of principles and values, and it can truly change the mindset here. This other key habit is this one of self-awareness, self-reflection, as it were. You've heard the statement, knowledge is power. Well, self-knowledge is incredible power. What I call the habit of log and learn. Yeah, as we sit down and with a journal or a diary on a regular basis and do this aspect of reflection. What are my gratitude? What am I grateful for? And what's gone well in my life? Why? And maybe what's some key learns? Why did that happen? What did I learn for that? No such thing as a mistake, only a result from which we can learn. Yeah, you either win or you learn in life. And that's a mindset shift again. So thinking through those on a regular basis, daily, weekly, etc., and capturing those in some sort of document again. So you've got that. And then as we look at this, I love this poem. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. But today is a gift. That's why it's called present. And I love that concept, being mindful right here, right now. There's nothing you can do with yesterday apart from learn. Hopefully we're going to get it tomorrow. We need a vision for that. But right now, living in the moment, it can make so much of a difference. And this last habit, all of the sciences prove that taking care of the most important asset, the most important resource, your body. So physical, intellectual, psychological, emotional, spiritual aspects. Yeah, Vince Lombardi said it best. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. And if we don't have the reservoir of energy to be able to draw on, and it's not so much what exercise does for the body, that is obviously good. It's what it does for your head. You'll be able to deal with life and pressures and stuff so much more effectively if you've got the energy. And so, is that a habit for us? I'd ask you to pause and reflect on those habits and think through. Yes, I do have kids, 4 of them. So I'm not quite sure who's asking that and why, but yeah. As we look at this concept of renewal, and again, one of the biggest pushbacks that I get from executives all over the world these days when I ask them, have you got a regime? Is it a habit that you're taking care of yourself? Oh, I don't have time to exercise. You don't have time not to. When we say, oh, I don't have to, you see, the paradox is we say we don't have enough time, but we have all there is. And so it's a matter of prioritizing again, going back to our regrets of the dying. We don't want to get to that point in our lives where we look back and say, I wished I had. The aspect of renewal on a regular basis, this aspect of meditation, of physical exercise, it is a game changer. And if you're not in the habit of regularly doing it, it makes so much of a difference. Anyway, it's exactly the same situation. You've been on the plane, and hopefully we'll get back there at some point, where the stewardess, the steward, they give you the safety briefing, and they say, if the oxygen mask comes down and you have a dependent, you remember, some of you, the rest of the saying is, put your own mask on first. Yeah, because you can't be of any benefit to anybody else until you do that. So self-care is not selfish, it's essential. And in that investment, you get that return on that investment, could make so much of a difference. So I'd like to deal with now the 4 key areas, the feelings or the emotional response to procrastination. And who's saying this? There are 1,440 minutes in every single day. Take an opportunity, 15 minutes to yourself, do something positive, a little bit of exercise. Thank you, Sasha. Yeah, absolutely concur with that thought. So it's that investment in time and really getting the best out of it. So coming back to this, with any task or decision that we need to make, remember that 2 or 3 things, or definitely that one thing that you said you're going to deal with. What is it? Does it fall into one of these 4 categories? And I have to give a big shout out to Graham Alcott, my friend and colleague, the original productivity ninja. And he's got that great book out there on that title as well. So he suggests that there are 4 emotional reactions that we have. This thing is difficult. It's a big challenging thing that we're dealing with. So it's difficult. The U in the dust model is it's lacking in clarity. I'm just not clear in my own or head about what needing to be achieved. Sometimes this is, the S is scary. It's I'm worried about it. It's a real frightening type of event. So how do you deal with that? And sometimes stuff is just boring, and that's the reason why we're putting this stuff off. So what I'd like us to do, and again, you know the little game that we're going to play. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, and then 1 hit the text, and I'd like everybody to participate and share with us your ideas, or ideas that you've come across at least in these 4 areas in terms of difficult. So you've got some examples on the screen here. It's a big job. It's a big project. How do you deal with that? 3, 2, 1 in the chat box, team. And hopefully, Bob, we can record some of these, and we'll capture some of these great things. Break it down into small plan, bite-sized pieces. Chunk things up. Mind over matter. Okay, I thought you were going to say mind over mattress. And that actually works as well. Deep breathing. Oh, breathing. Thank you. Breathing. Is breathing important, team? I find it helpful. Most people in the stress situation, though, they don't breathe properly. You've got to learn to, retrain ourselves. Think of the end result. Mindfulness. Fantastic. Delegate. If get it off your plate, get it onto somebody else's plate. Well, if it is your task to do, then maybe there's no room for, or if you're at the bottom of the totem pole, just go over it. Don't overthink it. No, okay, it's got some shaping, it's got some ideas there. Fantastic, wonderful. Understand all the work streams, okay, shaping it, keeping it simple. Oh, these are great ideas, team. Okay. So no, square breathing is much better. Julie, you're going to have to explain that one to me. So think about, is there that conversation that we're going to have, that wince person, how do we deal with it? Well, you've got some ideas from previously. Just do the hard job first. Get it out of the way. Keeping it simple. What else have I got here for us? So, yeah, okay. If it hadn't come up already, and I might have missed it in the chat, is get a trusted colleague and friend to role play with you, a simulation. You've got a challenging pitch that you're going to do. Nothing better than getting in a room with a colleague and role playing or simulating that conversation, that presentation. Ideally, put a camera on you. The camera never lies. You can see yourself in glorious living color. Get some real feedback here. Ask somebody else who's got more confidence or knowledge or skill in that particular area, because it might be something around either confidence, knowledge, or skill that's creating this. I think we already said it, the old eat the elephant approach. Chop that mother up into lots of bite-sized chunks. This one bite at a time, one bite, and you'd be amazed of how many different things. Coming up with some creative ideas of how you can deal with, and tell somebody else, put your ego out there. I'm going to deal with this by so-and-so, and put a date on it, etc. And there's some wonderful apps as well that can help you to help in the procrastination area. So let's go into unclear. You've got some examples on the screen here. So think about lack of clarity on a particular task. 3, 2, 1 in the chat box, team. How do we deal with lack of clarity? We're unclear. What have you come up with? Ask. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Ask, and ask some particular questions, which we'll come to in a minute. Oh, yeah. Okay. So ask and ask again. All right. Relate it to your why. Seek clarification. Asking some good questions. Ask and then listen. Yeah. Listen to yourself and listen to others. Yeah. Good. Trust your intuition. Love that one. Yeah. Go with the gut. Trust your intuition on this. Arrange a meeting where all stakeholders can get involved in the questionnaire, get their input. Absolutely. So mind body coaching. Okay, Julie, thank you for that. I'll take you up on that, and all the others. What is the result is required? Be clear about your plan. Excellent ideas, team. Fantastic. Dealing with somebody else's motivation. So what have we got here? Again, top of the list. You've heard of Kipling, 6 honest serving men. What, why, where, how, when, and who. Asking those type of questions, the open type of questions, can help us to diagnose and get a clarity. Then going to the SMART, Peter Drucker, 1941, gave us the SMART checklist here. So dealing with specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time boxed, and deadlines. The T is all about deadlines. If it wasn't for deadlines, nothing would get done. Maybe a little harsh, but it is true. Deadlines, do they create stress? Potentially, if it's maybe if it's an unrealistic deadline, but deadlines do create urgency, they create activity. So on that 1 or 2 things that you put on your list today, have you got a specific deadline? The law of specificity states, and if you've got a false teeth, you've got a problem with saying that potentially, but the law of specificity states that when you deal with specifics, you rarely fail. When you deal with generalities, you'll rarely succeed. So is it specific? Is it measurable? What metrics of success? Is it time, cost, or quality? Or as I say, you can have this thing good, fast, or cheap. Which is it? You can choose any 2, by the way. You never get all 3. Another training course in that one. Then planning it out, breaking it up, creating a Gantt chart, breaking those things down into bite-sized pieces. And then and if you don't know any of the others, I'll start with a guess and then do something and move on. Get some feedback so that you can move that forward for yourself. What about scary? It's frightening, it's worrisome. You've got that adrenaline pumping through you, etc. 3, 2, 1 in the chat. Please share with us. How do you deal with something that's big and scary? Imagine it was funny. Yeah, the power of the mind again. Visualization. Engage with it. Face it. Deal with it. Role play. Discuss it with a colleague. Fantastic ideas coming through. Respond. Breathing. Yeah, okay. Eat the frog. Break it down. Excellent. Apply logic. What would be the worst thing that can happen? I do the eye movements. Visualize success. Not quite sure. I do eye movements. Okay. And stop, think, overcome it. Yeah. Ask yourself again, why am I scared about this? Is it confidence? Is it knowledge? Is it skills? Which bit? Again, figure out which element it is for yourself and for others. Don't overthink it. All right, excellent team. You've got some fantastic ideas. Benjamin Franklin's sales technique that's utilized still all over the world, the pros and cons. What's the positives and the negatives? Think about what's the worst things that can happen here? What's the best things that can happen? Again, just start, upgrade your understanding, seek advice. You've got some great ideas to build on mine as well. And yeah, fantastic. Don't sit on it. In fact, sitting is the new smoking. Stand up more often than not. On your to-do list, if you're going to deal with the wince person, stand up. You're 3 times more assertive on your feet than you are sat down. Your breathing is very different. You're oxygenating your system. You're thinking differently. You're feeling differently, and then you will act differently. So that all of those, we're an ecosystem, folks. So let's deal with the last one, the boring stuff. There's a couple of examples. So 3, 2, 1 in the chat box. How do you deal with something tedious and boring? Stand up again. Excellent. Tedious, procrastinate. Did somebody really write that? Okay. Ignore it, break it down. Set yourself a goal, celebration in mind. Yes. Put that key focus. Give yourself a challenge. I'm going to get X, Y done. Small wins. Give yourself a rewards. Yeah. Oh, good. You've been reading my notes, teams. Excellent. This is fantastic ideas. All right. Set yourself rewards and just get out of your own way. The wine will taste better when the job is done, Tracy. Know where you're coming from. Okay, add a spoonful of sugar. Insurance fire. David, share with us, what do you mean by insurance fire? Okay, so some of the ideas you've already come up with, some great. Spend 2 days cleaning the data. Do it in session. You've got a big 5-hour job. Break it up into 5 one-hour jobs. Okay, again, gamify it. How much can I get done within the next 30 minutes? And use the Pomodoro technique, an alarm clock in the next 30 minutes. How can I get this done? Give yourself rewards. And I spent a couple of years over in Canada, and there was a Baskin & Robbins ice cream parlor around. And every Friday I had this very tedious, boring report to be able to do. But my incentive to get it done, I'd say I get it done within 2 hours. I'm going to have a double rocky road. Well, they do. Anyway, I won't go into it, but I'll take it in my veins if I could. So give yourself a reward and build in some fun, some listening, some music, some podcasts while you're doing that. You can dovetail some of those, some tedious, boring jobs if you can get it off your list. If it's really going to be not dumping on somebody else, but if it can be a development opportunity for somebody else in a proper one, effective way, then do so. So that's excellent. If you want to go digital on this, some of the tools out there are quite interesting. Some of you may come across Stickit, an app that you can download where you commit to doing a particular task. You set up a group of individuals to keep you, to keep you on the straight and narrow, as it were, and to help you in terms of your accountability. So you ask people to help you to progress here in doing that. Then you've got to put your money where your mouth is. You add some stakes, financial or other, depending upon where you want to, how important it is to you. And then you track when you're going to do it, by when, etc. So there's some great technology that can actually help us there. So those are the 4 areas here that we need to deal with often when we're looking at procrastination. So in summary, what is it that I'm putting off? Why? And think back to your reason, the thing that you've identified here today with us. Which is it? Is it one of that, or is it something different? And once you get that understanding, then apply some of those, or maybe even better, something else that you've come up with that can help you to break through the inertia and to be able to get that thing done. Okay, so in summary, just before we go into the Q&A, and I'd be very interested in you identifying what are some of the stuff that you've been reminded of or revealed to you today in the webinar that you can actually apply in your real life, and respond to the survey. You're going to get a wonderful PDF, 33 other proven ideas and tactics to help you and support you in that. You've got the offer of myself or Bob or one of the other team to be able to have that coaching conversation with us. If you feel that this or other training is going to be useful for you or your team, we'd love to come in-house and to be able to share that with you. And as you can see, there's a wonderful offer still there for you to take advantage of. We'd like to have that conversation, because this can impact a business bottom line in financial ways and other ways as well. So in the chat box, team, share with us. 3, 2, 1. What's the one idea that appeals to you today? 3, 2, 1. Go in the chat box. So the dust model, okay, helps you to answer that aspect of planning. Ice cream, oh yes, it's my birthday. I'm going to go to the parlor later on today, take out a big tub. Excellent. That motive drives action. Excellent, thank you for that. Yeah, there's probably another webinar all about that aspect that we could talk about. I could talk about that for a week. But as we look at put your own mask on first. Whoever said that, tell me more about that. I'm interested, intrigued on that one. Beginning with the end in mind. Yeah, jigsaw without the lid box. Changing that mindset. I get to do this. Yeah, and having that constant, one particular job. Using those 7 habits, tell yourself your goals. Sometimes you need telling the stories, etc. Excellent, breaking things down. Good, that end in mind, that internal motivation, that intrinsic motivation will come as a result. Fantastic, team. So think back to that one thing. My challenge to you is do it now. As soon as you get off the webinar, do it. Don't delay. Start in that habit. It'll make so much of a difference. And I'd be very interested in the result, actually. Email us. Let us know how you're getting on. So as we say thank you for your time, energy, and your attention. Now, Bob and and we'll come back online. Bob, are you going to join us as well? And we'll Thank you, Bob. Thank you for doing all the backroom stuff there for us. Hopefully,
it's been a pleasure.
Recorded all that chat. And we got a few minutes for Q&A. So populate. See if we can. If we got any questions from the team.
Yeah, please put your questions in the Q&A. That would be really good of you. We do have a question already. In your view, when is it okay to intentionally procrastinate?
Oh, intentional procrastination. For me, and I know, Bob, that you've got some ideas on this one as well. That's when you rationally, and I use that word particularly, when you absolutely know there's some bits of the jigsaw that I'm missing here. I need data in crucial areas before we can actually, as an individual or as a management team, to be able to make a wise and best choice or decision. So for me, that aspect of data would be a differentiator between procrastinating for no good reason, for delaying for a particular and specific reason. Bob, have you got any other thoughts you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think if we're intentionally procrastinating, it could well be that, you know, the subconscious, the intuition has kicked in, and we're not sure of the value of this task, and therefore actually, you know, getting out on top, on the surface, what's kind of beneath and in the surface could be a big part of the answer. So if your intuition is telling you something, then listen to it, but then analyze it, do something with it.
Good. And just thinking on that, the power of reflection, the power of the subconscious mind, I'm always minded of a technique that Henry Ford, I think, used. Always on his bedside table, he'd have a pen and a pencil, and he would, every night, as a habit again, interestingly enough, he would write down, what's the key problem that I'm dealing with? And he'd write that down. And often in the middle of the night, he'd wake up with part of the solution. And over a period of nights, again, going with that intuition, that insight, drawing on the power of the universe, as I call it, get some real gems and answers and insights there.
Yeah, good. Thank you. So another question has come in. How many jobs would you plan in each day to avoid dropping dust?
Oh, how many jobs would you plan each day? Okay, well, that's to avoid dropping dust. So rather than, I'm assuming, my interpretation of that question is because it's difficult or unclear, scary or tedious or boring, we want to, how many jobs would you plan to do each day?
Well, I mean, my default answer to how many jobs should you really plan seriously in each day is 4.
Really, that many?
Yeah, Dave Allen talks about 5, and other gurus talk about 3. So it's not many. It's not 20. That's for sure.
Depends. I suppose it depends where you are on the food chain here. At a senior level, then your day is typically responding, reacting in to some degree crisis mode, and some CEOs, they got one thing on their to-do list. I know there's some that I have coached, and if they can get that one thing attended to during the day, then they think they're doing well. But I think you're right. I think less is more often, and we have to be critically identified. Coming back to planning, what's the key drivers here? What's the role and the expectations? What's the deliverables here around my goal? And being very clear about what we're deciding not to do, as much as what we are deciding to do.
Yeah, not to do list is a good idea.
Yeah, and having the courage again to be able to say no. That's one of the big stumbling blocks I've found, and I don't know if we're doing an assertiveness webinar at some stage, but I think that there is value in terms of living those values, and one of the big issues I find for a lot of people is that aspect of saying no. Good. Any other? I don't know whether that.
Well, there's a comment from David associated with that question, which is surely the question is how much time should we spend planning? You know, typically 11 to 20 minutes to plan on a daily basis might be part of the answer, but planning in time and planning in resilience, David brings up as part of the answer. We have another question, which is how do you separate procrastination from self-care? I tend to make the excuse that I'm taking me time, but then just waste my time.
Okay. Well, I think it comes back for me to really understanding yourself and what's truly driving you as an individual, and what you get real joy from, and connecting back to your value system. I think for me, that intrinsic motivation to take care, real care of yourself is a challenge in all sorts of environments. But coming back to values, being aware, articulating them in writing was a real game changer for me and for many people that I coach in terms of really reprioritizing yourself in the list of priorities. Any other thoughts, Bob, on that?
Well, it's okay to chew a little bit of bubble gum every now and again, but I think if we're really doing self-care, then it's not bubble gum. It might be a nice glass of wine, or it might be a nice steak, or it might be time with real friends or real family. But watch out for the bubble gum. Now, sadly, Jim, it's 12 o'clock.
Oh no!
So we will save the questions from the chat and the Q&A.
Thank you all.
We will try and put some answers in the follow-up emails. So
thank you all for your time, energy, and your attention.
Thank you very much, everybody.
See you next week.
We'll see you next week. Who's on next week? Did you? Oh, it's me. That's right. Yes, I'm on.